Well. The American empire could have big problems, real big problems, if Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz really mean what they say. If there's some change in sentiment in the EU, let's talk. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, some interesting stuff going on. Interesting stuff going on. Now, keep in mind, we can never have but so much trust for the leaders of the European Union. We got to watch them because we do know that the elite ruling class in Europe um, has a history of simply being patsies and collaborators for the U.S. empire, oftentimes to the detriment of the well-being of the people in Europe. So let's keep that in mind while we discuss this very interesting turn of events. So let's start here. The reality is that you and I already know is that any discussion of a security guarantee in Russia, right, implies a reality that the U.S. empire does not abide. Okay, here's the reality: the U.S. empire, through its umbrella organization NATO, it's an umbrella organization that it uses to take full control of the EU, um, is planning on maintaining its hegemony, its full control, its multipolarity on the world, throughout the world, which is already, we talked about that, but that's already really fallen off. But the U.S. empire plans to use NATO to weaken Russia and weaken China because they see Russia and China as emerging powers. And so when the US talks about the security of Europe, when the US talks about protecting Europe from invasion from Russia, and now there's something going on between NATO and China, it's not plausible for the US to argue that it's got to protect the EU from China. So they've just said, okay, we're just going to use NATO, and we're going to go over here and confront China because China is a threat to Europe, but we don't really know how. So they're just doing what they're told, right? But the bottom line is, what I'm getting at is this: we know that the US is currently using NATO to try to maintain its grip on world power. But the US can't just come out and say that, because people would say, well, that's certainly not a moral and ethical thing to do. So the US has to say, we're protecting Europe from a potential invasion from Russia. Now, that being said, in order for that to work, the European Union states, countries, the vassals, the colonies throughout Europe have to go along with that. They have to say, yeah, we're on board, and they have to play along with that game, knowing that it's false, or just accept, okay, it's a fraud. We know what you're doing, but we're going to go along with you to try to help the US maintain as much world power as they possibly can, to be the main world power, right? But remember, that's just a cover story. I mean, the idea that the NATO is there to protect Europe from Russia is a cover story so that the US can try to confront Russia, try to take Russia apart, try to steal all its resources, try to confront China, try to take China apart, steal all of its power. This is all the US trying to hold on to power. Now, some things have happened that could throw a monkey wrench in that. Let's go. We're going to start by we'll start here. So what happens first? And it's worth looking at. So our boy Scholz, one of the weakest and most spineless human beings that this planet has ever produced, is saying, looky here, looky here, looky here. Germany says it wants post-conflict agreements with Russia. We have to go back. We have to go back to the agreements which we had in the last decades, which were the basis for peace and security order in Europe, right? Now, think about what that implies. That implies concern for Europe, peace and security in Europe. That's not what NATO is for. NATO is not at all to maintain peace and security in Europe. In fact, at this point, the United States, the Biden administration, is using NATO to do the opposite, to create insecurity and war in Europe, intentionally, hoping that that war will destabilize Russia. That's their plan, the destabilization of Russia, and they are risking the peace and security of Europe. So when Olaf Scholz says, look, we have to go back to something that brings peace and security in Europe, what he's really saying, if he means it, not saying that he does, but if we just say, for the sake of this discussion, say, what if he means that? What he's saying is, look, I'm not down anymore with this destabilizing Russia and doing whatever we have to do and sacrificing everything of ours, our lives, our livelihoods, and everything in Europe, just so the United States can try to hold on to world hegemony, which they've already lost, and risk our lives, right? So it's interesting. I would have to think also that Olaf Scholz, meaning that he is a member of the ruling elite class in Russia, in Germany, knows what the hell's going on. He knows they're being taken to the cleaners by the US. The Biden administration is not even trying to hide it anymore. They're stealing their industry. They're price gouging them on liquid natural gas. The bottom line is the mask is off. The Biden administration is just saying to Europe, look, we ain't trying to hide it anymore. We're going to price gouge you and make every dime we can selling LNG to you guys. We're going to cut off your gas, your cheap gas from Russia, so we can take you to the cleaners selling you our expensive gas and shut your industry down and move it to US. To hell with you. We are going to take you to the cleaners. We're going to rape, pillage. We're going to treat you guys like we have treated Syria and Venezuela and Cuba, and you better shut your mouth and accept it. So that's what the Biden administration is saying. What Scholz is saying, really, in that he likely knows everything that I'm saying, is we may not be down with this anymore. The pain, its dial has been turned up too high. So you look back, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Friday said that the revival of post-Cold War security agreements with Russia were necessary to restore. Listen to what he's saying. The Biden administration does not want peace and security in Europe. They want war and insecurity, right? He's saying, while German Chancellor refused the process of referring to the past partnership with Moscow, he agreed and apparently displayed a willingness to work with Moscow in the future. We're starting to see, if in fact he's not just BSing us, he may be, Germans starting to say, look, yeah, man, we might have to look out for ourselves here. The U.S. clearly, the U.S. is just laughing, just spitting in their faces, saying, it couldn't get any uglier than this. The U.S. has now basically said to Europe, we're going to take your industry. We ain't trying to hide it. We're going to price gouge you for items. We're going to take your jobs. We're going to take your industry, and we're going to price gouge you for gas, and you're going to shut up and take it. We're going to slap you around, beat you into the ground, and you're going to keep your mouth shut. Oh, by the way, Scholz, Macron, when you guys come over here, I'm going to denigrate, degrade, vilify, and humiliate you, and then you can go home and keep your mouth shut. It's pathetic what Europe has allowed them, the way they've allowed themselves to be treated like cheap prostitutes. All right. According to the German chancellor, there was still some degree of willingness in Berlin to discuss arms control, missile deployment treaties with Europe, although he noted the conference that this peace order would depend on Russia making some significant concessions and not Ukraine. Right? Russia would come to the negotiation table given, listen to this, that there is no aggression coming from NATO, Russian press RT iterated. So what Russia's saying is this, and this is obvious. The U.S. is just using NATO to surround Russia with bases and to lay siege to Russia. Russia's saying, I'll negotiate with you guys, but you got to stop laying siege to us. Scholz is saying, we're willing to talk to them, which means, now also think about this. What Scholz is saying is when this thing's over, they're starting to kind of get a bad feeling here. It's wintertime. It's getting colder. Ukraine's got no electricity, for God's sake. They're running out of energy. And guess what? Germany ain't much better. They're running out of energy. They're going to crash and burn. And they're hoping that they crash and burn because at least they can stand next to the fire and keep warm. So you can see Scholz starting to peel. If this is true, if this isn't BS, peel away from the U.S. empire and say, look, man, we got to look out for ourselves a little bit, brothers. Um, Russia's president had accused NATO of fulfilling its regional expansionist agenda since the 90s. Sure. And he asserted threatens Russia's security and sovereignty. Look, NATO came right up to the border of Russia. They're going to build missiles. They're going to point nukes at Russia. You name it. And Russia just said, all right, you know what? If you want to come to our border, you're going to have to fight to stay there. That's what Russia's saying. You're going to come to our border like this, you're going to have to fight to stay there. That's what a superpower does. If you come to a superpower's border and threaten it, you can come to their border, but you're going to have to fight to stay there. If you're willing to fight, you can stay there. But the whole time you're there, you're going to be a fight. You got to have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And because Russia has so much commodity power, they can put pressure in other ways. And meanwhile, the U.S. is just wiping Europe out. It's just wiping Europe out economically. It's just turning Europe into a third world a hellhole. So there we go. Now, why is that important? If it were only Scholz, if Scholz were the only one doing that, it wouldn't be as important. Let's go to our next article. Macron says new security architecture should give guarantees to Russia. Now, timing is everything. Do you think it's an accident? What's happened recently? What has happened? Right? December 3rd, the West should consider how to address Russia's need for security guarantees if President Vladimir Putin agrees to negotiations about ending the war in Ukraine, President Emmanuel Macron said. In an interview with French TV station TF1, recorded during his state visit to the United States last week, Macron said Europe needs to prepare its future security architecture. That means that one of the essential points we must address, as President Putin has always said, listen to what he's saying, is the fear that NATO comes right up to its doors and the deployment of weapons that could threaten Russia. Oh no! Macron's a Russian bot and a Russian spy. Now, if you know history a little bit, then what you know is that last December, Russia came up with a, let me kill this for just a second. Russia came up with a set of security demands and said, look, we got some security demands that we're going to give to the U.S. We're going to give them to NATO. We're going to give them to the EU. And we're going to say, look, we need to talk security. You guys have come up to our border. You guys are NATOizing Ukraine. We need to talk. Otherwise, there could be, and Russia said, military or technical response. The U.S. said, screw you. This ain't even a starting point. NATO said, drop dead. Stoltenberg said, you don't even get a say here. And Russia says, oh, okay, well, fair enough here. Then we're going to war. So Russia went to war, and of course, the rest is history. And the EU is suffering, unthinkably, and their future ain't bright, and their present ain't so good either, right? So, and let's continue. So, because the NATO and the EU and the US, mainly the US, ignored Russia's security demands. And Russia's demands were, you're coming up to our border, things are getting too tight, you pushed us into a corner, we've got to fight. We'll fight. We don't want to, but we're willing to fight our way out of this corner. You want to fight? If it's war, but you're not going to come up to our corner, come up to our border like this and threaten us and think we're just going to sit here and stare back at you. We're going to start throwing blows. We're not going to sit here, twiddling and singing. As Malcolm X said, sometimes it's time to stop singing and start swinging. And that's what Russia did. Okay, so the U.S. has maintained this. Screw you, Russia. We're not listening to you. We'll just keep giving more weapons. Why? These Ukrainians will surely win if we just give them the next HIMARS, right? It's obvious now what time it is. Russia's got 500,000 minimum 500,000 swinging Richards in Ukraine. The unthinkable number of divisions of tanks and of armor divisions. I mean, you name it, and they are ready to kick ass and take names. And Ukraine's in trouble, and the lights are out. The energy's down. The power's out. winners here. It's bad. Ukraine is in the worst possible position they could be in, and Russia can sit. They don't have to launch a major. They don't have to launch a major offensive. Or they may launch a number of minor or medium offenses, or they may just sit there and punch, and let Ukraine dwindle away to a skeleton. I'll put it like this. Here's the bottom line. Russia's got the horsepower now, sitting there. They don't have to pull a trigger, but they can anytime they want to. And Ukraine's back is up against the wall. The Ukraine military, the Ukrainian infrastructure is up against the wall. The Ukrainian political, economic infrastructure, it's all backed up against the wall. Things ain't looking good for Ukraine. And so I think Russia, Germany, and France are looking at this saying, really, Russia could take this thing if they want to. They could turn this tide so bad. The tide's already turning. Bakhmut's falling. All kind of things are going on. And they're looking at this saying, all the bullcrap we talked about, Russia losing, is about to run into 500,000 angry Russians. Ain't going to work well. So all of this big fat talk, and now we're getting ready to get, our asses handed to us in the middle of the wintertime. And if that ain't bad enough, the United States is now openly, blatantly, and unapologizingly stripping Europe of its industry and laughing in their, spitting in their faces and laughing at them. And the whole world is looking at them like, they're just taking your industries and they're looking at you and laughing. You gotta be kidding me. The world's looking at the EU leaders and the world is saying, they just passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Read it. This is what it says. If you read the Inflation Reduction Act, this is what it says to me. European companies all come over here. That's what it says. Macron comes over. He talks to Biden, and he's like, "Dude, you're stealing our industries right in front of our face." And Biden is like, "Oh well, duh. Hey there, Captain Obvious. You've got a firm grasp of the obvious. Now get the hell out of DC and take your croissant eating ass back across the pond and shut the hell up." That's basically what Biden said to him. Get out of here. Oh, really? Gee, hey there, you figured that out, did you? Get out and shut up. That's what he got from Biden. So while he's there, Macron's now he's saying, look, and he knows he's not stupid. He knows his role in this movie. So Macron knows that his job is to facilitate the economic destruction of Europe. And he's been happy to do it so far. He's been going along with it. Scholz too, keeping their mouth shut and facilitating it either by commission or omission, either by helping the Biden administration or just sitting on the sideline and watching the Biden administration do it. But I don't think they really thought that they would come talk to Biden. He'd spit in their face and laugh at him, which is what happened. So Macron comes over to talk to Biden, and Biden spits in his face, slaps him a couple times, and says, "Get the hell out." That's basically what happened. Hey, sir, things are looking bad. Yeah, in fact, and they're about to look worse. We're taking your industry. You ain't doing nothing about it. Get out. Don't let the doorknob hit you where the good Lord split you. That's basically what he told Macron. Out of Washington, D.C., out of my country, and do not let your face darken the doorstep of the White House again. Get out. So now Macron and Scholz et al. Now have to make a decision. We're being humiliated and robbed. So it appears that maybe, I don't know, let's finish looking at this. Maybe these people have grown a spine. I ain't betting on it, but let's continue. So think about what now. This is important. If you read what Biden said, this means that the essential points we must address, as President Putin has always said, now he knows that's like taking a needle and scraping the eyeball of the Washington neocons. He knows that is just like saying poison to them when he says, well, we got to do something. Just like Putin's always said, we got to look out for this. And they're like, he said the B word. Yeah, just like Vladimir Putin has always said. You know that guy? You know who he is? Vladimir Putin? Yeah, just like he always says. The fear that NATO comes right up to his doors and the deployment of weapons that could threaten Russia, right? So he goes on to then say that topic will be part of the topics for peace. Think about that. He's now saying what Putin said was we must talk about NATO's infrastructure on our border. And Macron says that topic will be part of the topics for peace. So we need to prepare what we are ready to do, how we protect our allies and member states. Okay. Which is not what the US is doing. It's trying to screw over your allies and rob your member states. But he says, and how to give guarantees to Russia the day it returns to the negotiating table. So now Macron and Scholz are saying something that is to the neocons and Biden what garlic is to a vampire, what silver is to a werewolf. Russia and the United States have both said this week they're open to talks in principle, though Joe Biden said he'd only talk to Putin if the Kremlin chief showed he was interested in ending the war. So the bottom line is Biden's like, yeah, I'll only talk to you if you'll do something that I know you'll not do. And wait a minute, here's the thing: if he stops attacking, bottom line is, yeah, they're going to stop attacking once they've defeated him. That's like somebody attacks me and I'm beating the hell out of him. Yeah, is this guy unconscious? Yeah, he's laying there bleeding. He's unconscious. All right, I'm done. Yeah, I'm willing to talk now. I beat the crap out of this guy. He's laying there unconscious. It's time to talk. That's when it's time to talk with your enemies, in fact. That's when it's time to talk to your adversaries. After you have kicked their ass mercilessly and they're laying on the ground begging for mercy, that's when it's time to negotiate. Before then, negotiate. Maybe you've got to motivate your enemies to to negotiate. And when they're laying on the ground with a foot up their ass, they're oftentimes that's when people are the most motivated to negotiate. Many in Ukraine and the West, by the West they mean Foggy Bottom, the State Department, are strongly opposed to any negotiation with Putin that would, listen to this, reward him with concessions. Reward. Think about that language. What intellectual people are talking about is every country has border security issues. Right? So Macron and Scholz are talking about the border security issues. The idiots at Reuters are talking about rewarding an individual person like they're talking about a child. We wouldn't want to give him some ice cream. Now, maybe we could give him an apple. I know he likes apples, but ice cream, he really loves ice cream. We don't want to go that far. We'll start by giving him some almonds. They're kind of crunchy and they taste good, but they're not sweet. And we know he likes sweet things. We'll give him some almonds. We'll move on to apples. And if he's really good, we'll give ice cream. And we'll say, Vladimir Putin will reward you if you're a good boy. How stupid does that sound? How immature and childish to talk about rewarding people when you're talking about a country that has gone to war because of security issues on their border, because they're looking and they're saying, I think these people want to put nukes on our border. I'm going to war. And these idiots are talking about, we wouldn't want to reward this guy. We wouldn't want to give him ice cream and candy. But let me say this. That's for us. They want to make us stupid. They want us to believe that this is about Vladimir Putin and rewards. Well, we must punish or reward. Well, let me tell you something. That guy's got more nukes than we got. You ain't punishing him. You ain't rewarding him. He's going to do what he has to do. And if you get too froggy, he's going to turn you into a smoking black pile of ash. So you're going to reward some guy who's got a couple thousand nukes. Nah, that ain't the kind of language that's going to do you any good when you're talking about dealing with a country who's been attacked repeatedly on their border, whether it was Napoleon or Hitler or the Crimea War, on and on and on. No. He ain't looking at being rewarded or punished. He's saying, you're going to get off my border or I'm going to kick your ass off. That's what they're looking at. And if you want to fight, fight. If you want to negotiate, negotiate. And I think where Russia is now is they're like this. We're in Ukraine. We got Ukraine on its back foot. We're going to finish this thing. You want to talk? Then we'll be in a position to talk after that. But we're going to shut this thing down. And then you're ready to talk? We can talk. But don't ask us to give up nothing. To the victor goes the spoils. And that's what Russia, again, when do you negotiate? It's going to be wintertime. It's going to be cold all over Europe. Energy's going to be through the roof. Food's going to be scarce. Ukrainian refugees running all over creation, hungry, and God only knows what. Some of them with, unthinkable tattoos and hugging their books of Mein Kampf, running all over Europe. There's already some terrorism has been started. They found some Azov related guys that were going to blow attack some shopping centers in Italy. Trust me, Europeans, you've made a mistake aligning yourself with these people. You've made a mistake letting the US drag you into an alliance with a bunch of stinking Nazis, and you will pay for that. You will pay for a long, long time for that. But my point being, let me finish this sentence. Many in Ukraine and the West are strongly opposed to any negotiations with Putin that would reward him with concessions after nearly 10 months or more. Listen to this. Especially as Ukraine has driven back Russian forces from large areas in the past 3 months. Really? They're staring down the barrel of 500,000 heavily armed Russians. They are, chewing up artillery every day. Ursula von der Leyen just admitted that they lost 100,000 troops, and they're like, they've driven back Russian forces. Well, if this is driving back Russian forces, then it probably ain't going to work out for them very well if they keep driving back Russian forces. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is the usual bull crap that you get from the mainstream media. This is the usual stuff. And it looks to me, based on this, let me look at the Scholz one. You know what? There's more. There's more there. We really need to look at in the one with Scholz. We really need to look at that one, and I'll tell you why. There's more. It's a little deeper. Okay. While Germany agreed to ink some agreements with the former Soviet Union, the chancellor reiterated his support Ukraine for as long as it takes, echoing the pledge by the European allies and the U.S. Yeah, they believe that. He clarified that Germany will not return to the pre-war partnership with Russia in terms of energy and gas reliance as Moscow achieved the Europe-wide dominance. Former UK Premier Boris Johnson claimed that Germany was hesitant to join the EU's anti-Russia sanction and the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. The sabotage, German government reckoned. That's weird. Former UK Premier Boris Johnson claimed that Germany was hesitant to join the EU's anti-Russian sanction and the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. That sentence doesn't make sense to me, but we'll keep going. German government reckoned it would be better for the whole thing to be over quickly and for Ukraine to fold, Johnson said. The German government, meanwhile, labeled the former UK prime minister's claims as utter nonsense. So apparently, at some point in the past, the Germans wanted this thing over so that they could get to the negotiating table. The bottom line is this: they're paying the price, they're paying dearly, and they're done. Germany's dominance, Germany's economic power is a thing of the past. They're going to be a crap whole country, and the truth of the matter is, they kind of earned it. They kind of earned it by being stupid. And you know what? As they say, play stupid games, get stupid prizes. And now they're going to be left with bottom line, they're going to be left paying the price. They're going to be left reaping the rewards of their foolish moves. And I think now what's really waking the Europe up, they're getting pressure from the bottom, from their people, and they're looking at the future, and they're saying, man, if I was an EU leader, I'd be thinking to myself, man, you know what? When the people wake up, yeah, I got them bamboozled right now. Yeah, they're painting their fences blue and yellow, and they got blue and yellow flags and all that, but the polls are going in the wrong directions. In one of these days, these people are going to wake up, and they're going to realize, I can't afford anything. I can't afford to live. I can't afford to die. They're going to realize my industry's gone, my jobs are gone, and there's no hope. There is no way back from this. All of our industry has moved to the United States, and it ain't coming back. Our jobs are gone. Our way of life are gone. It's all gone, and we got Ukrainian refugees running all over creation, but we don't have anything. And at that point, they're going to start looking at their leaders. and there will be hell to pay. And some people could end up things. Let's just say this: it could get to a point where if you were one of those European leaders that brought this abomination, this economic abomination upon that continent, you better get the hell off that continent. The time may very well come in Europe where the people of Europe wake up and say, we were used to going to soccer matches and used to going to outside cafes. We were used to having jobs. And now look, we were used to having a social safety net. And now look, it's all gone. All of it's gone. And it's never coming back. We don't have a social safety net. We don't have jobs. We don't have anything but poverty and misery and crime and disease. We don't even have heat. And it ain't never coming back. This is our plight. This is our, think about that. This is, the Europeans are going to wake up and say, this is our lot in life. Our children used to be well educated. Everything used to happen. And about a 12 to 18 month period undid the last 500 years. Undone in 12 to 18 months by the likes of Victoria Nuland and Tony Blinken and Joe Biden and these idiots at the US State Department. That's what Europe is looking at. And when right now, if I were in Germany, they'd probably hate me. I'd walk the streets and they'd say, oh, look at him, a Russian bot. He believes the Putin stuff. He's a Putin person. If I was in Europe, oh, they'd be pissed at me for telling them that. But that ain't going to last but so long. They're going to wake up one day. I don't think, there's a discussion very much about Europe making it through the winter. Man, their gas is going fast now. You see, they've got a bunch of underground tanks where they store gas for the winter. Those tanks were not designed to be holding tanks for gas so that you could just run off them all winter. They were designed to be holding tanks for gas so that as the gas pipelines was steadily pumping gas in, if something happened for a couple days, you had some issues, you had enough storage, you could keep them pressurized, you could keep the gas flowing. If you had to turn it on or off coming from Russia for a couple days, they weren't designed to be just a holding tank to last you through the winter. And all you got to get is a cold snap, a couple cold snaps, some problems. The French, the Germans, the Eastern Europeans, they're already starting to say to their people, oh, by the way, guys, I just want to let you know, when it gets really, really, really cold and you're freezing your asses off and you can't turn the heat up very high, yeah, the electricity might go out. You know what I mean? The electricity might go out. You're living in a high rise in Munich, in Paris, wherever, in London, and it's going to get cold, real, real cold, real, real ugly. You know what they're saying in France now? They're now saying they're going to have to cut out morning school for kids, right? They're like, look, we're going to end school in the morning to save gas. Think about that. You're just going to do that this year? What do you think? It's going to get better? It's going to be worse next year. So now your friggin' kids are going to be ignorant and uneducated, stumbling around. They can't even recognize their names when you write it in front of them. Your kids are going to be ignorant, uneducated. You're not going to be able to compete. Now, and let me say this. It's getting to the point of survival. So now, you know what you're going to have? First, the kids aren't going to be able to go to school in the morning. And at some point, you're going to have to shut the schools down. How are you going to have schools when you're having rolling blackouts? What are you going to do? Send the kids in school. Is there any lights? Nah. They got heat? Can they go to the bathroom? Nah, the water ain't working. You're going to send 6, 7, 8-year-old kids to school with no heat? And electricity goes out? Probably not a good option, do you think? And when your electricity goes out in a really, really cold area, what happens to the pipes? The pipes are going to freeze and break. You're going to have all kinds of terrible things happen. The United States has finished Europe off. It's over for Europe. Goodbye. Europe is on its last leg. And now, if they weren't stupid enough, now they've got some Russian oil cap of $60 a gallon, and Russia's already said, well, I'll just stop selling you guys get oil altogether. And what you think and what's going to happen as a result? The price of oil is going to go up and everybody's going to pay more. So Russia will be able to sell less and make more. They ain't losing. They're the ones with the oil. The people with the oil and gas never lose because everybody needs oil and gas in this world. You need their oil and gas, and everybody else does. And when you say I ain't buying your oil and gas, the other people are going to rub their hands together and say, "Hooray, more for me." Kind of like, I don't know, a straight guy goes into a singles bar and he notices, oh, that there's like mostly gay guys. You know what he's going to say? Woo-hoo-hoo, more women for me. He ain't going to be mad at them like, darn, I don't think he's going to be like, yeah, well, all these babes in here and those guys are gay. They ain't looking at him. I'm getting work done tonight. That's what he's thinking, right? It's a competition thing. That's reality, right? Well, right now, what's happening? Europe is falling off the competition wagon. They're not going to be competing with people culturally. They're not going to be competing with people economically. They're done. But throw Europe aside. So the question, I guess, is, and this is important. I guess I'll kind of finish up with this. The question is, do Macron and Scholz mean it? Do they have the guts? Do they have the backbone? Do they have the backing to stand up to Biden and say, look, man, dude, we got to talk to Russia. We need a security deal. Because keep in mind, here's the issue. What the Biden neocons are trying to do is the opposite of a security deal. Russia's saying, I want security between me and Europe. So I'm not attacking Europe. They're not attacking us. Everybody's happy. And the Biden administration is saying, we want to pretend that we're concerned about the security of the EU from Russia. And in reality, it's the opposite. We want to figure out how we can be even more threatening to Russia. If the US ain't on, if the EU's not on board with that, it ain't going to work. And guess what? If the EU is on board with that, it still ain't going to work because you're going to have to be willing to fight to stay on Russia's border. The EU is not willing to do that. The EU doesn't have the economic wherewithal to do that. So there we go. There we have it. That's interesting stuff. I thought we needed to chat about that. We got a few. All right, we got a few super chats. Sparky, how can the West expect Russia to trust them? Even trust but verify isn't reasonable when dealing with US, UK, and EU smugglers. Absolutely. I do think that if Russia sees that the EU and the US are fracturing or breaking up, that'll cause them to have a little more, I'm not going to say trust with Europe, but they will recognize that Europe is in a difficult position. And I don't have to trust you if you're in a bad position. I can see that you're in a bad position and I can say, okay. And I think there's going to have to look, Russia doesn't need really think about this. Russia ain't looking for a deal. Russia's looking for action. So Russia will say could say to the EU like this. The EU says, we want a deal. And Russia says, look, I need you to get your infrastructure, the NATO infrastructure, off of our border. Now, if you want to do that, if you want to talk, I got to see some of it leave our border before I'm ready to talk. If you're not willing to take any of it off our border before we talk, I ain't willing to talk, because in the past, every deal that we've had, you've broken. So here's what I want you to do. I'm from Missouri. Show me. You want to talk? Yeah, I need some of your infrastructure off my border right now. Get some of it off. And then we can talk. The problem that the EU has is, number one, it's just a vassal colony for the US. Number two, Latvia and these little teeny postage stamp size countries that are like the size of the neighborhood that I live in Maryland, and have probably a smaller a population. These raggedy places are willing to suicide themselves much more so than the rest of Europe. They're like, we hate Russians and we're willing to put guns in our mouths and pull a trigger to spite the Russians. And now you're seeing the Germans and the French are like, maybe you're going a little far there, brother. But Poland and these other countries are willing to commit absolute suicide. I see these countries, some of them falling apart. Like Poland, I see some of them falling apart because you know what's coming now. As within the next month, what the Ukrainians that are left in Ukraine are getting the hell out. They're by the millions. They're going to head west. They got to get out of there because they got no heat, no water. So let's see about that. Let's see. Do we have any other super chats? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Joseph Curry, thank you very much. We got some super chats. Sparky says, great work, Garland. You're killing it. Thanks a lot, Sparky. I think this is important stuff. I think this is something to keep an eye on. Sparky, the gas storage in the EU is like a giant gas regulator, and like you say, needs input for there to be output. They could input water to push the gas out, but it may cause damage. Yeah, it ain't going to work the way they're saying it's going to work. Let's look at Rockfin. We got some people there that's doing some things. They're doing some things. Zippity Day, thank you. Michael Duncan says, thanks a lot, you guys. I certainly appreciate it. Zippity Day and Michael says, you know, they're making moves here. Let's see what we've got some people to say. Next time Britain comes crying to the USA for helping in a world war, tell the British to bugger off. Well, first of all, the US is trying to start a world war and Britain. So, you know, all right, how about we go with Europe is now a captive market for the U.S. That's how capitalism. It is in its imperial monopoly phase works. Yeah, look, it's a prisoner. Captive is right. The the EU is NATO is a prison. That's what it is. It is a prison. These countries aren't members of NATO. They're prisoners of NATO. It's a prison organization. Ukraine is finished. No way in hell is Russia going to let Ukraine beat the West now. Oh, it's done. Ukraine is finished, done, game, set, and match. I agree with you. Human beings are not very smart. Well, there's certainly a lot of them. I agree with you. Remember in 2018, told their citizens to stockpile food for war. They knew it was coming for years. Oh, absolutely. The U.S. has been planning stocking up Ukraine, setting it up to go to war with Russia. They've been setting Ukraine up for a proxy war on Russia's border. That was the plan, to destabilize Russia. That's why now that Macron and Scholz are saying, look, we might want to do some kind of a security deal with Russia. It won't work with the U.S. The U.S. is going to go crazy. What is Congress going to do now? Say we're going to, I guess they're going to punish Russia, sanction Macron and his family, sanction Scholz and their family. I guess that's what's coming next. Sanctioning sanctioning all of our allies, so-called allies. They ain't allies. And I think that is it. Any other questions? All right, guys. Oh, okay. How long do you think before Ukraine is forced to surrender unconditionally? It seems unavoidable now. Well, you know, I'll put it like this. Let me say this. If you think about who their symbolic and ideological um, leaders are, right? Let's just say symbolically, they pledged fealty to a certain Austrian who led a very nasty and odious ideology that was popular in Germany in the 30s. What did he do? Did he ever throw in the towel? Did he ever give up? No, he didn't. At the end of the day, he just put a bullet in his head. He just killed himself in a bunker in the end, right? When you're dealing with Nazis, they're not the kind of people that ever say, okay, we lost. They'll go out in a blaze of glory. So the truth of the truth of the deal is, if you got a mad dog, you got to put it down. If you got a mad dog on your border, you can't negotiate with a mad dog. What do you think? The Azov, C-14, these people running around with swastikas tattooed all over them and Sieg Heiling on goose stepping all over creation. You think they're going to at some point sit down and have a chat? You know, guys, perhaps we were in error. No, they're mad dogs. And they know what I know. You got to put a mad dog down. The U.S. has fired up a mad dog, a bunch of friggin' Nazis on their border, and Russia's going to, in there, in my opinion, Russia's perspective is, we got a mad dog on our border and we're going to put this mad dog down. And Russia is going to think about this. What Russia, sadly, unfortunately, horrifyingly, as long as there are a bunch of people in the Ukrainian military, they're potentially there to fight. Volunteers from Poland and wherever the hell, they're potentially there to fight. Russia doesn't need to take Bakhmut. Russia doesn't need to take Zaporozhye. They don't need to take any of these places. They need to kill every one of them from their perspective, so they can't fight. And I think from their perspective, that's what they're going to do. They're going to say, you put all these people in the military, you put them on the battlefield, and we'll kill every one of them. And then what are you going to do then? So I think Russia's perspective is, we're going to blow to hell every piece of military hardware that comes anywhere near Ukraine, and we're going to put a bullet or shrapnel in every single person who dreams of fighting for Ukraine until there ain't nobody else that want to fight and there ain't no military hardware. And as long as you keep it coming in, they're going to keep destroying it. I think they see this as an opportunity to exhaust the West. They're going to exhaust Ukraine of its ability to fight, and just say, keep pumping people in here to fight and we'll just keep killing them, to the point where keep sending stuff in and we'll keep blowing it up. I think Russia has prepared for the long time, and they're going to do some offenses, and they're not planning on doing a deal, I don't think, really, because they figure like this. If let's just give an example. Ukraine has 300,000 people in their army, and from Russia's perspective, okay, we do a deal right now. Those 300,000 go back to wherever the hell they come from, right? Another year and a half, we're going to have to fight them again. Another year and a half, they're going to go home and rest. The U.S. is going to arm them all, give them new stuff again, come back, and there we are all over again. I think Russia's perspective is, we will dispose of these bastards now, and we ain't going to fight them a second time. There ain't going to be nobody left to fight. I may be wrong, but I think that's what Russia's plan is, to grind them down till there ain't nobody left to fight, to remove the will to fight and remove the ability to fight in Ukraine. I think that's what Russia's doing. And I think Russia is not really mad that the United States is saying, and the EU is saying, we don't want to deal with Russia. I think Russia would come to the table, maybe, but I think Russia's like, but we got work to do. And when we get finished our work, which is annihilating anything that looks like a Ukrainian soldier or a piece of military hardware in Ukraine, we got work to do. We're going to go about doing this work. When we get done doing this work, if you want to talk, fine, you can talk. If not, there ain't going to be nothing left in Ukraine to talk about. The people are going to be gone. Think about this. They cut off all the electricity. The people are going west. There's going to be a skeleton crew of people left in Ukraine. What is left? A skeleton crew of people at best, and a whole lot of skeletons. There's going to be no military. You're going to have an empty battlefield with no electricity, with no energy, with no economy, with very few people. They've all gone, and they're all wandering through Western Europe, saying, "Hey, Zelensky and his crew, they'll be about it. That's about it." And I think that's Russia's plan. And to be quite frank, it's a pretty strong plan right now. It's looking like a pretty strong plan. If I had to bet on whose plan's going to work, 500,000 Russians on the heavily armed, I'd probably have to put my money on theirs. We got a couple. Let me look here. Go Dogs SEC Championship. Hey, thanks a lot. And, way to go, Sparky. You guys, the SEC, huh? All right. Salty Texas Trucker says they're done with treaties, just ask Native Americans. Exactly. They ain't doing no deals with the U.S. Ain't happening. Not happening. Salty Texas Trucker, remember in 2018, told that, yep, thanks a lot. We already covered that. So that's where we are. Anybody else? Oh, we got some more people. Thanks, Michael Duncan. Thanks, Zippity Doodah or whatever. Jenny, was FTX the money laundering vehicle to Ukraine? It absolutely was, but maybe not the only one. FTX definitely was. The U.S., they're giving money to Ukraine. And right in the middle of a war, Ukraine says, hey, why don't we investigate? Why don't we invest in crypto? And then like tens of millions of dollars is coming right back to the Democratic Party. Yeah, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out, does it? And I think that is it. Somebody else said, it ain't going to be long till we American citizens are being Russia for help despite and in spite of our effed up government. And if I were them, I'd pull the lever. Shit needs to be flushed and never seen again. So, but okay, let me look. Anybody else? Listen to most, came late. You're right. Their mad dogs are worse. This is a pretty inefficient way of emptying Ukraine, Poland, and the U.S. of Nazis. 77 years ago, the U.S. took the Nazis out for R&R. You are quite right, my friend. I think Russia will wear them down, and Europe will wear down at the same time. I think Europe is beginning to about face, and when they about face, it won't be pretty. And here's the bottom line: is Does Russia, has Europe waited too late, and or will Europe wait too late? Time ain't on their side. UK, EU, and US speak with forked tongue. You are 100% right, Sparky. I agree with that. Once the ground is frozen, the game will change. I think the game has already changed. I think Russia's now they are in the driver's seat. They're in the catbird seat. They got the people they want. They're getting more and more people. And pretty soon they'll be the one dishing out the punishment. They'll be the only one dishing out the punishment. And they're going to dish out a lot of punishment. And all right, let's see. We got Robert Thomas says, oh, we already got that. Americans speak with forked tongue. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. It's late. It's a Saturday night, so I'm going to call it quits. I will say this once to end tonight. I'm tired. Here's what I'll say. For those of you who you see everything going by patreon.com, if you can, give $1, $3, $10, $100 a month, whatever you can do to help keep the channel going, I appreciate it. We got buymeacoffee.com/Garland NH. I don't know why the hell they stuck the H on there. If you can do the buy me a coffee, I appreciate that. Some people don't like to do PayPal because they feel it's a neoliberal scum place, but buy me a coffee is available. Follow me on Telegram. As you know, I've been kicked off Twitter permanently. Again, patreon.com, PayPal, buy me a coffee. And as you can see, I've got my Cash App information up there. Whatever you can do to help the channel is highly appreciated. If you can't, don't worry about it. If you can't afford it, just enjoy the channel. Share this stuff on your social media platforms as best you can, and take care of your family. If you can afford it, I appreciate it. Don't forget, everybody, I got a Rockfin channel, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Everybody become a member there. I got 751 people. That means hopefully I got 751 likes, and all 751 people must go to my Rockfin channel and become a member. No cost to become a member. So when and if they toss me off of YouTube, I'll be over there on Rockfin, and you'll know where to find me. Last but not least, as you know, you've got a Rockfin, and what's today? The 3rd. As of right now, I think it's going to go up, but as of right now, so you'll know, Rockfin is a streaming platform, and it's a free speech platform. It does not do any advertisements, so they do appreciate anybody who can do the monthly subscription. You don't have to do that. If you can't afford it, don't worry about it. But if you can do a subscription, it's $9.99 a month, and you get 2 months free if you sign up for a year. I certainly appreciate it. Anybody that can do that, help keep a free speech place like Rockfin going, and with no advertisements. But if you can't, you can always sign up for Rockfin for free. Thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate all the support. Share this. I'm just, doing the best I can. Peace. I'm out.